Hello everybody, this is Rav Zvi Ron, and I am here taking a break from Pesach cleaning to tell you some Pesach Divrei Torah. Alright, let's start with some minhag type issues. You know, there's a lot of things that are written in the Shulchan Aruch. People don't get around to looking at it because there's so much to clean and cook and prepare for Pesach, but here is a few nice things that the Ramah mentions. First of all, the Ramah talks about this idea with the arba kosot. You know that you're supposed to drink them haseva, right? Leaning, because that's derech cherut. Says another aspect of the cherut is, he says like this: Baal habayit lo yimzog ba'atzmo. The head of the household should not pour the wine for himself. Rak acher yimzog lo derech cherut. Another person should do it for that Baal habayit, because that is the derech of cherut, to have somebody else pour for you. So that's a nice custom. I don't know if you guys do this. A lot of people do it with the washing of hands, that somebody goes around, to the table, and everyone washes hands at the table, or at least the Baal habayit does. But here's another nice custom, that everybody could pour wine for another person at the Seder, and therefore everyone is having derech cherut, because they're all being served. Now, another very nice thing that the Ramah mentions, but this also it depends on you guys. When you have the egg on the Seder plate, it says that the egg on the Seder plate, it says like this: the Shulchan Aruch says habeitza tiyeh mevushalat. You should make the egg is cooked. In other words, the zroa is tzli. You make that roasted. Why? Because that represents the Korban Pesach, which was roasted. However, the beitza, which represents the Korban Chagigah, you just cook, and therefore you make it a hard-boiled egg. But I know a lot of people do not do like a Shulchan Aruch. They make a hard-boiled egg, and then they take a little match, or they put it a little bit on the fire to roast the egg a little bit too. Why is that? That the Ramah explains, V'hu adin sluya, but the egg could also be roasted. V'cheno agin beirena. That's what we do. Now, what is that? Why could it also be roasted? Well, that's very nice, because the Mishnah Berurah explains the reason is because it's Zechel HaChagigah, the Korban Chagigah, and Einat Tzrichat Tzli. It doesn't have to be Tzli. Chagigah ba ben Tzli ben Mevushal. The Korban Chagigah can be either Tzli or Mevushal. So therefore, to represent that it could be either, or could be, therefore what you do is you take it and you cook it, and then also you roast it. So you have like a double kind of a thing. That's cute. Alrighty, and then the last thing I wanted to talk about regarding the halachot is that you know that we always have salt on the table, right? Because the table nowadays is like a mizbeach, and we have every korban had salt went along with it, and we have also, whenever we have the bread for hamotzi, we always have salt with it. And the Shulchan Aruch says so too with the matzot. V'yitbelem be'melach. You put the matzah and salt and you give it out. However, the Ramah mentions an interesting thing. You say, I don't know what you guys do at home, but it is an interesting thing if you want to try it. The Ramah says, Ein haminhag l'tavlam b'melach. He says really the custom is not to dip it into salt. Balayla rishona, the first night. Why not? Why not? He says, Depat naki ein tzarich melach. First of all, if it is tasty the way it is, you don't really have to put seasoning on it. Seasoning is to make it extra tasty. However, if it's pat naki, very good bread, very fine bread, and it doesn't need extra seasoning, you don't have to put on it extra seasoning. That's fine. And the matzah, since we've been waiting X amount of time not eating matzah, and we all have a tavon now, we have a big appetite for the matzah, so it might not need salt. And look what the Mishnah Berurah even adds another thing. He says that also there's another issue, that it could also be, he says, we don't do it, because tzfeihu nireh lechem oni, because we call matzah lechem oni. One of the interpretations of lechem oni is bread that is for a poor person. So therefore, poor people, they don't have salt, so we also eat it in this fashion without salt, at least for the first night at the Seder. So, those were three nice minhagim that we just discovered, or let's say, I don't know, we investigated to a degree. Number one was that each person pours for somebody else the wine at the Pesach Seder, that's derech cherut. Number two was the idea of the egg being both cooked and roasted, to show that the Korban Chagigah can be cooked and roasted. Number three is the idea of not putting salt on the matzah during the Seder, because that's more of a lechem ani situation. Alrighty, now let's talk about something that goes on at the Seder. You know, one of the famous lines at the Seder that is very, very, I don't know, people don't understand it, is the idea where it says, Rav Yehuda hayanoten bahem simanim. Rav Yehuda would give simanim for the 10 plagues, right? And what are the simanim? It says, right, Datzach, Dam, Tzvader, Kinim, Datzach, Adash, Bachav, right? So, alrighty, now, where we last left off, Rav Yehuda, we were speaking about in the Haggadah, how Rav Yehuda talks about the Makot. And it says, Rav Yehuda hayanoten bahem simanim, and the simanim are Datzach, Adash, Bachav. And all he did really was take the first letter of every one of the Makot and string it together to make 3 words. Dam Tzvader Kinim spells out Datzach. So the question is, hey, Rav Yehuda, so what? All right, I mean, you made a nice acronym out of all the Eser Makot. So what does this have to? What is the amazing, great chiddush over here? So I'll tell you. I will give you now 2 interpretations. Interpretation number 1 is, I'll tell you, they're both really based on things that Rav Yehuda says elsewhere. Rav Yehuda is very famous, by the way, for making a statement in the Gemara that says, "La'olam yelamed Adam b'no v'talmido b'derech tzara." That a person is always supposed to teach his students and his children in a short way. In other words, to give them mnemonics, like ways to remember things. And here we see Rav Yehuda actually doing this in the Pesach Seder. This shows us, really, that the same way we have, the Arba Banim, different types of, let's call them students, that we're teaching in the Seder, we also have different kinds of teachers. We have Rav Yehuda is one kind of teacher who likes to teach everything in a way that you remember things, on your fingertips, right? And in a very nice, short, abbreviated, sparks notes, summary kind of way. And we find this elsewhere in the Haggadah too. We have Rabban Gamliel, for example. Rabban Gamliel is famous for the idea in the Gemara that he says, mitzvot tzrichot kavana. That when you're doing a mitzvah, you have to have intent that you're doing it for the purpose of a mitzvah. And therefore, what does Rabban Gamliel say in the Seder? You have to say, if you didn't say these 3 things, Pesach, Matzah, Umorah, Lo Yatzai. He says, you better say these things with Kavanah, otherwise you do not fulfill the mitzvah. Similarly, you have the idea, for example, of Hillel. Hillel says, the midah of Hillel in Pirkei Avot, he says, Haveh mitamidav shel Aharon. You should be like the students of Aharon, right? Ohevet habriot u'mekarvan laTorah. You should bring people close to Torah. And here, you see, what does Hillel do at the Seder? Hillel says, the only way to fulfill the mitzvah of matzah, to do it, amatzot murim yochluhu, like it says in the Torah, you have to eat the matzah with the maror, together with the Korban Pesach, when you have a Korban Pesach, and mix it all together and korach in a sandwich, bringing it all together.